It's Freeology Friday. We're a little late, but we are here. So,
Yep.
Aaron, what's on? First of all, what's in your glass tonight? Let's talk about that first
So
thing.
I don't
First thing
I don't
first.
remember. Well, I thought I'd have wine tonight, and I don't remember who last week had the menage a trois. So I got the dark or the midnight blend, dark red
That
blend. It's
was
pretty good.
Sandra. Sandra.
That's
Uh,
right.
she had
So
yeah,
shout out to Sandra.
yeah. But I'm not, and like you, I have a Merlot. This is a Monarch Glen
Uh huh.
Merlot, and this is one of my favorites, one of my absolute favorites. And but in deference to Ben, it's not sweet wine, or
Oh
and a nod
God.
to Ben, it's not sweet wine.
Yeah. I just can't.
When we all get together though, we're gonna have to have one setting where we have like Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill or
Oh
something like
man, taking me back to being 16 years old now.
yeah. So Mad Dog 2020. Oh man.
Oh, that'd be great. We can
So
have
so
that
Aaron,
in Milwaukee's best.
oh yeah, oh my God, Milwaukee's best. Oh, but let me tell you this. This is a true story.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in the Navy, my first shore command was Operational Test and Evaluation Force, and we were on the what they call Synclant campus, the
Mm-hmm.
Commander in Chief Atlantic Fleet, and so there was a Marine base there. How was it? I forget what it was. Camp something. It's a Marine base, but anyway, they had a Marine package store, and that was where we went to buy booze, right?
Yeah.
And so you could get a 6 pack of Mickey's Big Mouth malt
Oh
liquor
yeah. Oh shoot. Yeah. Yeah.
for a buck 25 a 6 pack.
God.
Oh
For
boy.
some reason, I don't know why Mickey's was a favorite when we were in high school, but we had a drive-in theater um, close to our high school.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of glad my parents are dead when I'm telling these stories. I remember getting Mickey's and going to the drive-in, and
Yeah.
yeah, we had some crazy times. Good times though, man.
Yeah. Very good times. So listen, I'm going to kick the can to you to introduce tonight's subject.
Okay, so we off air, we've had many discussions, I guess, on the nature of reality, cosmology, quantum physics, and of course that leads into discussions about God, discussions about atheism, and you've been very um, on record as an atheist, and made the comment several times on here that if you don't at least consider atheism, then you haven't truly deconstructed. And I'm uncomfortable with the term atheism, and you've nuanced it for me quite a bit. So I thought it would be a good idea to just kick this around and talk about it. And so I did a little research. I don't always, but I did a little. Because for me, some of it gets down to semantics and what words mean, right? So I looked up atheism in a couple of different, definitions. I think it was Merriam, is it Merriam-Webster dictionary
Yep.
that
You
said,
got it.
uh, rejection of belief in gods, specifically though, uh, not believing in the Judeo-Christian or monotheistic creator God.
Hmm.
And so then I looked up theism, just, because atheism is obviously the opposite of that. And so theism, belief in one God, especially, or belief in gods, especially belief in one God, and it was tied to Judeo-Christian stuff.
Yep.
And then I thought, okay, I'm going to look up what is a God technically. And so, I mean, I'm getting really simple, right? But sometimes, I didn't want to assume anything. And so a God is a higher sort of spiritual being,
Hmm.
belief in that. And so based on those definitions, I certainly don't believe in what we call Sky Daddy. I don't believe in the biblical version, the Nicene version of God
Hmm.
anymore.
Right.
Um, and there isn't really anything, the Christian in me is arguing in my head as I'm saying this, because we always talked about idolatry you could worship anything. You worship your car, you could worship money, you could worship
Mhm.
sex, whatever. But there's nothing really that I consider that I'm devotional to or that I worship in that
Yeah.
sense. So I think technically I can fit those definitions of atheism, but I'm still not comfortable with the term. And so
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to this discussion and how we're going to nuance this out.
Well, you know what? I too, I'm going to try to do something fancy here. If you guys bear with me, I'm going to try to do this here. Put up a chart, and I don't know if you guys saw it or not. It went up for a minute. I'll
Yeah,
try this
so for a
again.
second.
Okay, let me see if I. Okay, it looks like you can't pause it. So I'll have to work on my fanciness here. But it's this, right? So you have 4 quadrants, and it goes like this. If you look um, at the top, is Gnostic, which is 100% certain.
Mhm.
This is the root of Gnosticism or Gnosis that I want to know. And Gnosticism refers to some hidden knowledge, right? That when you know this hidden knowledge, then the mystery becomes unfurled for you. Then at the bottom of the quadrant is agnostic. That's 100% uncertain, right? So it's you don't know, you're not completely sure one way or the other, right? And then to the left pane, you have what they call theist. You believe in some kind of God, and to the right, you have atheist. So if you look at this quadrant again, and now I'll have to figure out. I'll put it in the link so everybody can see it. I'll make a picture. Um, and this isn't original, by the way. I kind of copied it from somewhere on the internet. But on the left upper quadrant, or quadrant one, you have Gnostic Theist. A Gnostic Theist is someone who's 100% certain that there is a God or gods. Without a shadow of a doubt, you can't persuade them otherwise.
Mhm.
Quadrant two, which is the upper right corner, is Gnostic Atheist. In other words, they're 100 they're 100% certain that there is no God or gods, right? They don't believe in anything, and they're certain that there's no God, no higher
Mhm.
power.
Mhm.
Then in the lower left quadrant, you have agnostic theist. They believe that there's a God or gods, but they're not fully certain,
Mhm.
right? They believe that there's some higher power, just not real. And that's the definition, the classic definition of what we call agnostic,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And then in the lower right quadrant, we have agnostic atheist. And an agnostic atheist believes that there's no God or gods, but they're not fully persuaded of that. Now, if I were to plot myself on this chart, I would be in the upper part of the lower right quadrant. In other words, I'm pretty sure I'm on the verge of being kind of gnostic about this, but I still have doubts. Or that there may be something greater than me or greater than you.
Mhm.
So I if I'm again plotting myself on this chart, I would say that I am an agnostic atheist,
Mhm.
because now back to what you were saying, and this is where we agree, because like the in the nuance of this, we have different viewpoints, right?
Mhm.
But
Right.
where I'm in complete and total agreement with you is that the whole notion of the Judeo-Christian Islamic sky daddy, that doesn't exist. That dude is just as fake as a $3 bill, right? And so when I think about atheism, this is what I think. I think that it is returning to your natural human state. Because when you're born, the only thing you believe in is yourself.
Mm.
You don't believe that there is no external concept of anything. Now, over time, what happens is that the mother shows up, and the baby then begins to believe in the mother. And then the dad shows up, and the baby begins to believe in the father.
Mm-hmm.
But then as time goes on, mother and father begin to express their beliefs to the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And the baby begins to inherit those beliefs by proximity,
Sure.
not by choice, but
Right.
by proximity.
Mm-hmm.
And this proximity is nuanced because it can be geographic, it can be ethnic, it can be cultural, uh, it can be national.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have a lot of nuance there. But what I'm getting at is that when you are an atheist, I believe that you are fully deconstructed. In other words, whatever vestiges, baggage, um, remnants, residue of religion, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And now you are just like at basically you are at ground zero. Now,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, Aaron, I always have an anecdote. So here it goes.
I can't wait.
And I bought a house in Detroit,
Mm-hmm.
and it was rare because it had a 2-car garage. It was an older house, a 1920s two-door style house, and the garage was a few degrees off center. So I had a couple of friends that said, "Well, what you need is what they call a come along." And a come along is basically a strap like made out of really super heavy duty seatbelt kind of material with
Mm-hmm.
these ratchets at the ends of the strap. And basically you connect it to a fixed point in the garage, and you ratchet this thing until it brings the structure back into plumb, you
Mm-hmm.
know, pure vertical.
Right.
Well, so we put the come along on there, got it up vertical, put some shims in, sledged them into the ground, and everything was fine for about 3 days. Then I could see it started leaning again. And so at this point I said, okay, I'm not gonna ask my friends, because they're smart guys, but it's like it's a difference between hood engineering and real engineering. so
Right.
so
Yeah. Right.
we have this hood engineering thing going on, and so I got somebody who specialized in garages to come out there and have a look at it, tell me if it could be fixed. And he looked at my garage. He said, "Dude," he said, "you're going to have to tear this down." I mean, there was nothing wrong. The wood was fine. It passed the termite inspection. Everything was good. But he said, "Dude, you're never going to get this straight. No matter how many times you do this, you'll do it. You might be able to get it to be straight for 6 months, maybe even a year. But eventually it's going to lean, and eventually it's going to fall. So what you want to do is just go ahead and tear it down and haul away all the crap." So I did that. Had the garage torn down. And I said, at least I have a good concrete foundation here, right?
Right.
Well, and so I'm getting bids to build a new garage. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, well, let me get my buddy to come out here and take a look at this again. And so he comes out and he looks at the foundation, and he's got all these instruments, you know, and he's, doing ultrasounds and soil samples and all. And he said, "Dude," he said, "your foundation is fucked up. You can't even build a garage here." He said, "Basically, you're going to have somebody come in and jackhammer all this concrete out, and you're going to have to
Mm-hmm.
haul this away before you build anything." The moral of the story is that I started off with a garage that I thought was in pretty good shape. But then I said, okay, let me try to deconstruct and rehab this garage. But then, an expert says, no, this has got to all come down. So I'm down at the foundation. I'm thinking, okay, here's the point where I can rebuild again. and I can't, because what it was built on was fucked up. And
Mhm.
what's really messed up about that is that I never really had that conversation about the house itself. Because it could have been, I had a dry basement,
Mhm.
when you have a dry basement, that's a great thing, right? um but there was probably something wrong with that. I just didn't know, you
Yeah.
know. So anyway, I say all that to say that when you get to atheism,
Mhm.
especially if you've had any kind of religious upbringing, any religious building upon some religious foundation, that when you get to deconstruction, you think, and I used to preach this all the time as a Christian pastor, or as a Christian preacher. I would say, you gotta strip it down to the chief cornerstone.
I suspect you've used that anecdote in some
I
messages when
did.
you were on the other side.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I could hear it.
Oh boy, I would tune up on that here. So anyway, the long and short of it is that, when you're in the process, and there are so many people that are in the process of deconstruction, and my heart really goes out to them, because people go into deconstruction for a lot of different reasons. One is the main one, or what everybody gets accused of, is because they're hurt, because they've been
Mhm.
injured, because they've been wounded, right? and
Mhm.
and then the second group are the people that just really thought about it. They really, looked at it, and they decided, okay, I'm going to stop trying to play connect the dots with this, and
Mhm.
I'm just going to logically, rationally analyze this, and that's the conclusion.
Yeah.
So anyway, I say all that to say that, as I get ready to kick it back to you, Aaron, is that,
Sure.
when, one of the things, and this is really painful too, is that when you build something up,
Mhm.
and you have to tear it down, for whatever reason, there's a certain amount of sorrow,
Mhm.
reminiscence. I'm trying to think of what are the words that I could come up with, but, I remember, like in Detroit, the JL Hudson department store was a big fixture in downtown Detroit, and in the mid '90s they tore it down, or late '90s they tore it down. And and I remember everybody's, just watching this there. It was on television, and there were people there watching it live, and there was a certain amount of sorrow that went along with seeing this. This was an icon. This was part part of my upbringing, part of my growing up, going down to Hudson's, especially like at Christmas, go see Santa. That was a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so when you tear down something really significant like that, there's you know as Shakespeare said, parting is such sweet sorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So, gosh, so many different ways I could take this, but I think so. For me, I just like you've been on record saying you're an atheist,
Mhm.
um, and you're nuancing it with. I need to see that chart. What is it? Not agnostic atheist. Is that where you're at? Is that the
Yeah,
quadrant you're in right now?
I'm an agnostic atheist. Yeah. So
Okay.
I'm going to see if I can. It'll only.
Yeah.
I'll put
Okay.
it
I
in
got
the.
it. I
Yeah.
got it. I
I'll,
got it.
yeah, I'll put it in the chat so that people can see it.
So what I've always said, because my process, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that too. But my process was it was interesting. It was just interesting. I guess I'll start with how it started. Uh, for whatever reason, when I turned 45, like my life began to unravel. But here's the thing: it wasn't unraveling externally; it was unraveling internally. Externally, everything was fine. Everything was fine. I didn't have any problems or worries, and in terms of what I viewed as being successful in ministry, I had achieved and was achieving all that. And the best way I could describe it was just waking up one morning and it was like my cupboard was bare. I'd been giving out and giving out and giving out and serving and pouring out to people, like we're taught in ministry, if you're sincere about it. And, You're not in it for the power grab and all that other BS. But I was burnt out. And so without going into too many of the details, I decided, I talked to a group of pastors about it one day, and they said, well, you need to take a sabbatical. So we left Colorado. We went down in your neck of the woods, to Phoenix. And we spent 3 months in Phoenix. And one of the first things I did was I got into therapy. Can't say never gone to a counselor. I went to a counselor for a brief time in my 30s, but decided to get into counseling. I was already a counselor myself. And I specifically chose not to go to a Christian counselor. And I remember one of my friends challenged me on that. He's like, why aren't you going to a Christian counselor? And I looked at him and I smiled and I said, what do you think a Christian counselor can tell me that I don't already know? And he just looked at me and said, that's a good point. So I thought I need to hear a different viewpoint. I know all the stuff to do in this situation by Christian counseling standards. And so one of the things that my therapist was really into is a modality of therapy called EMDR. And without going into all the whole acronym of it, it's a trauma-based therapy that helps your brain, does some things that helps your brain resolve traumatic events. And so I remember I'm sitting there doing this EMDR thing about some event with my father, my dad, and I. When I was a teenager, we didn't have the best relationship. Things got pretty bad at one point. And so I'm going through this, and somehow one of the things that EMDR does is it brings up other trauma. So you start with one trauma, and as you're processing, your brain says, oh yeah, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And so this, it can be like popcorn, all these traumatic memories or events. But the trauma that was brought up to me, and it was interesting the way it presented itself to me, was I perceived as though in my mind's eye, as though I was standing before Jehovah, as though I was standing before God. Before God. And I was terrified inside. And I was a grace preacher by this time, Derrick. I mean, I've been preaching grace I preached grace most of my life, to be honest with you. I never really delved into the legalism side of things much, especially after I was a pastor. So I've been preaching grace for at least 15 years. But yet I'm sitting here with these emotions. And my therapist asked me what's going on. And I said, I'm standing before God. And she said, is God in judgment of you? And I chuckled and I said, no, God's not in judgment of me. God's sitting there in wrath. And she said, well, tell that God bullshit. Now I'm sitting here thinking, I don't want to this is the thought that went through my brain, Derrick. I don't want to piss off the Almighty on his best day. I certainly am not going to say a curse word to him when I feel like he's viewing me in wrath. Regardless of all my theology and everything, at an emotional level, that's what I felt. And she says, okay. She says, in your mind, go up to that image that you're seeing of God and give it a big sloppy kiss. And so I thought that I could do, and I had scripture for it, right? Because everything had to have scripture. Everything had to be scripture-based. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, right? So it's like
God will do anything except violate his word.
Yes. So I in my mind's eye, I go up to that and I kiss this image of God, and all of a sudden, the best thing I can describe it as, like the only category I could put it in my own mind, was like Saul of Tarsus on the road to Damascus when the scales fell from his eyes. That's what it felt like. That image evaporated. And all I can say, Derrick, was all the engines inside of me that had been revved up with anxiety, nerves, depression, obsessive thinking, insecurity, all that goes with that, self-doubt, it just stopped. Like all the negative voices stopped. Everything just stopped.
Wow.
And I was stunned. And My wife and I have a disagreement to this day about it because I say we were fighting every day. She says, no, it wasn't that bad. But in my mind, we were getting into an argument every day. And of course, in my mind, she was the whole problem. And I go home and I remember I felt different and I kept looking in the mirror, Derrick, because literally all the muscles in my face had relaxed.
Mm.
And when we got to Phoenix, the first thing we did was we joined a health club. We had to take a photo for the health club.
Yeah.
And I would look at that photo of me from just a few weeks ago and I'd look in the mirror and I wasn't seeing the same person. Now, that was on a Monday. So the rest of that day, my wife and I didn't have an argument. We had a great day. Tuesday, didn't have an argument, had a great day. Wednesday, doing great. Thursday, doing great. Friday, loving life. Saturday, doing great. Sunday, we get up and what do? Go to church. We go to church.
Oh boy.
We go to church. And we just get home from church and we're setting up to barbecue because we got a rental house for 3 months, a VRBO for 3 months. So we're getting ready to barbecue in the backyard there. And we're just biting each other's heads off about stupid shit. Like who knows what we were even arguing about. And I caught it and I said, and I stopped it and I said, you know what this is? I said, this is because we went to church. This is because it triggered all that stuff that it had created. So I had always battled with anxiety. I had always battled with self-doubt. I had always battled with a temper. I had always battled with irritability, especially as I would get close to preaching, like just leave me alone. Nobody come around me because I'm going to be irritable. And I always struggled to, in my own life, what I thought bear the fruit of the Spirit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing I know, all that stuff, like the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control, all that stuff was just natural. It was just there. It's just there. I wasn't having to work for it. I wasn't having to try to be patient or try not to be irritable, or it was just peace until we went to church. And so here was the crazy thing to me. I mean, I grew up with a narcissistic, abusive, alcoholic father. I grew up an awkward, strange kid that was, you know, I'm blind in my left eye still. And they thought back then if they patched up my good eye, that the vision would come back in my bad eye. And all it did was make the vision bad in my good eye. And so I'm walking around in a patch. I developed no hand-eye coordination. I missed some of those developmental windows. So I'm awkward. I'm not athletic. I'm getting picked on at school. So I could have pointed to any number of things growing up in abusive, narcissistic, alcoholic father, perfectionist, shaming mother, being bullied. You know, I could have picked any number of things. And I remember sitting there for days thinking my entire problem was my religion. What I thought was the answer, what I thought was the solution, was actually the thing that was making me sick. I was a spiritually held Munchausen by proxy syndrome
God
child.
damn.
And my parent was the church. And every Sunday morning I'd get a dose of my medicine and I would just get sicker and sicker until I became the one dishing out the poison.
Well, see that, and that's part of the problem of religion, is that religion creates the problem and then peddles the cure.
Yep.
That it's like people, if you don't tell somebody that they're wretched, that they're worthless, that they're a sinner, that they're dirty, that they're filthy, that they're rotten, that they're hellbound, if you don't tell them any of that, they don't know. So what do you do is you create a compelling enough message that drags people down to that level and says, but wait, here's the cure.
Yep.
And this was the thing for me. It's like, I mean, I can point to so many different, like, okay, let me say this, another anecdote. I'm very good at navigating. You know, it's like if someone says go northwest so many miles, I understand what that means. I get it, right? And I know how to find my way around. I rarely ever get lost. So when I'm going through all these different things, it's like I collect milestones, and
Hmm.
I'll set a marker here or a marker there, and so I'm able to go back and revisit those markers so that I can see where I've been, you know, or I can see what my progress has been, and that's always been good. Well, what I found was that when I went back and looked at my religious milestones, that they were way afield of my path. They were way away from what was real progress for me. They were distractions of the highest order of magnitude.
Hmm.
And what was funny, we talk a lot about this on the show. We talk about rabbit holes. Well, it turned out that for me, Christianity was the biggest rabbit hole.
Hmm.
And I went chasing the March hare for most of my adult life.
Hmm.
And so here, like you're saying that everything is great, then you go to church and suddenly everything goes off the rails, right? And dude, I'm like the same way. It's like I'm having a good week, and I'm thinking, I can't wait to get in the pulpit and preach. I used to be addicted to preaching,
Yeah.
and I couldn't wait. But there was always a frustration around this. I was like you. I couldn't spend time talking to a lot of people. I would be irritated if my kids weren't getting ready fast enough, or if something was not right with the car. Any little thing would tip me over the edge. And not only that, there were so many other things in the periphery of my life, things with work, things with family, things with neighbors, things with even hobbies, and I would just get really uptight about stuff. And then here's what happened. When I had this, and it was literally a zen moment, because and
Hmm.
it was brought on by somebody, because basically I was straddling the fence between atheism and agnosticism and theism. I'm just, you know kind of sorting my own way out. And this guy says to me, and it's a guy on Facebook that I don't even know. I don't know him like I don't even know him close to like how you and I are. But this
Right.
guy says to me, he says, what are you? Are you a preacher, or are you an atheist? He said, because I can't really tell by what you're posting. And normally somebody saying something like that doesn't move anything with me. But for some reason that got under my craw.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, what am I? What am I? And so I began to look at the Derrick that was sold out for Jesus, the Derrick that was addicted to preaching, the Derrick that wanted everybody to understand God's unconditional love and unlimited grace. That I, I began to look at that guy, and I said, okay, where is the fruit of all of this?
Hmm.
Where's the result? Because I'm a results oriented person. It's like when my job, I have what they call KPIs, key performance indicators, right? That if I don't meet these KPIs, then not only do am I in danger of not getting a bonus, but I could lose my job. So the outcomes are very important. There has to be something tangible, measurable, repeatable that happens. And I began to look at this and I said, okay, is it tangible? And I would say things like, well, I sold my car into the kingdom of God, and I've never lacked for a nice car since. But then again, I've always driven nice cars, always. It's just that I took a brief lull when I first got married, because we had, we suddenly, I mean, we came together and had a good sized family. So that means that the income kind of drops off, which kind of affects, your spending. But then once we, learn to accommodate the growth of our family, and it wasn't such a big deal. So I realized that God had nothing to do with it. This was all adjustments that my wife and I made in order to accommodate this particular lifestyle. And then I started thinking about this in the in the context of, okay, God help, we're running late for church. I need my keys. God, I need my keys. I need my keys. God, Lord, help me. Jesus, I need my keys. Okay. And then I find the keys. Oh, praise the Lord. God had a purpose for today's message, that I had to be there today and I couldn't be restrained. So he helped me find. And then I started looking at that and I said, man, what about the mother in Somalia that's,
Mm-mm.
concerned about if she doesn't feed her kids, they may die. If they don't get clean water, they may die. That if they don't have the right medical attention, they may die. In other words, something more significant than my keys, or who scored that touchdown in the football game, or the job that I get. And all these things, man. It's like I began to look at all of this, and I said, man, okay. And this was my moment of Zen, Aaron. This was it. This was it. Because I said, okay, if I'm being blessed and someone out there needs far more than I do, that their needs are more imminent, more impending than mine, but I get my prayer answered, I get my blessing, but they don't.
Mm-hmm.
That meant that this God was blessing me at the expense of them. And then I began to feel really, really shitty.
Mm.
That was my first reaction. But then I came to myself and I realized, whoa, I didn't have anything to do with this. I mean, I handle my own things. And because I handle my own things, I can either bask in the accolades of my accomplishment, or I can give myself a kick in the rear
Mm-hmm.
for not accomplishing. But the thing is that my achievement, accomplishment, my blessing, my overcoming didn't happen at the expense of someone else. Because here's the thing, and this was it. This was it. Either God was a complete and total dick, or he didn't exist. That was it for me, because let me say this. I got to give a shout out to my man Kyle Butler. Kyle is the love doctor. This guy, he teaches a relentless message of love. It was love when he was preaching the Christian narrative, and it was love when he left it. It's love, love, love. That is his thing. That is his DNA.
Right.
And that, for me, it was like, okay, is this my DNA? Is this really me? Is this and the other thing too, we talk about this, and I got to say this and I'll shut up, I promise. you know, we talk about this all the time about being your best authentic self.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I was like, I said, okay, how many people am I imitating? How many people am I trying to be? How many people am I trying to please? What is it? And I realized that in my zeal to preach this Christian narrative, I had completely displaced and misplaced myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I woke up, I just looked at all of this and I said, something, there's no way that this God can be real. There's just absolutely no way. And that's me. That's,
Mhm.
your,
Yeah.
as I like to say, your mileage may vary.
Yeah. So, but this is the issue, and it overlaps with my story or my positions as well, because we're talking about theodicy. For people, I'm going to read the technical definition for people that don't know that word. And if you know that
Do it,
word, I
man.
feel really sorry for you. if this is not the first time you've heard this word, I'm so sorry for you. But theodicy means the vindication of divine goodness and providence in the view of the existence of evil. Say that one more time. The vindication of God's goodness and providence in the view of the existence of evil. And so that's the problem that theologians wrestle with.
Mhm.
Now, you can take theodicy. So what you're saying, everything you just said, I found my keys and there's someone in Somalia who can't feed her children. And God's answering my prayers, but God's not answering her prayers. What's the classic thing? I don't know who came up with it, what philosopher, but if God is all powerful, then he cannot be all loving. And if he's all loving, then he cannot be all powerful. Because if God were all loving and all powerful, he just fixed world hunger, right? He just
Yep.
fixed the
Is that the
AIDS epidemic,
Epicurean
or
paradox?
yeah, take your pick, right? And nobody has a good answer for that, Derrick. I mean, I've read all the books,
Mhm.
Nobody has a good answer for that. I don't have a good answer for that. I have no answer for that. And so what people want us to do then is, well, just surrender your intellect, just submit to, just understand. I had a friend that would tell me over and over again, Aaron, you've lost the sense of mystery. You just have to embrace the mystery. You have to embrace the uncertainty. You're a Westerner. You just want all the answers. You have to. This guy was in Eastern Orthodox Christianity. You need to embrace the mystery of the divine. Well, you and I both know that's bullshit,
Yep.
because at the end of the day, you can't take an honest reading of the teachings of Jesus and not see that it really does paint a picture of someone who is interested in the marginalized. The fact that he came to the Jews. I mean, we act like he came to Americans, like being Jewish in Rome in the ancient Near East in the first century was like being an American in the South
Yeah.
in 2020, right? Or 2022. I got stuck at 2020. Like life just stopped.
No.
They were very marginalized. They were very oppressed people. And so, and then there's this ethical involvement, turn the other cheek, love your neighbor as yourself, love your enemies, all that stuff, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, that should build a better society, right?
Yeah.
So it's as though God said, okay, I'm giving this God, if he existed, is saying, okay, I'm giving you the responsibility of, fixing all the problems. But then if you show any social concerns, if you talk about the presence of evil in the world, then people get this problem of theodicy, where they have to justify the existence of this God, and they can't do it. But now you can take it one step further, and this is what really began to unravel for me during this journey, was the reason I saw God in wrath in my subconscious coming up, this subconscious image, because I've been traumatized. I saw, Carl Forehand asked in the comments, he said, what do you do when someone says, yeah, but this church is different? I don't mess with them. I leave them alone, because it wasn't church. It wasn't church that made me sick. It was the teachings of the Bible. It was the God that I believed in that made me sick. And when you begin to unravel the evil in the Old Testament, the evil that Yahweh did to people in the Old Testament, the inconsistency, like I can't help, first thing comes to mind is the poor dude. I mean, I know these stories are not historical, but the poor dude that, picked up sticks or something on the Sabbath
Yeah.
day, when
Numbers
God had
chapter
said,
5.
honor the Sabbath and keep it holy. And then he tells Moses to kill him,
Yep.
So there's that issue. So intellectually, so here's my issue. Here's where I struggled, at first, because intellectually I could look at this and say, I don't want anything to do with the God of the Bible, because this is crazy. I mean, if you really look at this in the Old Testament, this is crazy. And then progressive Christians want to say, well, we don't really believe in that God, because that was humanity's distortions. And so it took God coming in the person of Christ to, unveil that God is nonviolent and all that stuff. But if they don't know anything about other religions, then apparently, I mean, because there are religions, certain aspects of Buddhism, for example, where there's none of that violent crap that they have to deal with or get over. Yeah. So, I mean, this isn't an all-wise plan. I think that's evident. But looking at that, but here was my problem. So intellectually, I can agree with, yeah. I mean, if there's a God up there that's, he doesn't give a fuck. I mean, it's easier to be a deist. There was a creator, but he just kind of sits back and watches stuff go down and doesn't intervene. My issue was, Derrick, and we've talked about this a lot, and I hesitate to even bring it up because I know, I just hate this, but this was really my issue. My issue was that my life, from the time I was 12 years old, and I didn't become a Christian in the sense that we think about it until I was 18, but then from 18 on, but I can go back to, 12, 13, 14, sometime in there, was marked over and over and over and over and over again by the supernatural. And I'm not talking about something that, where it's just a blind nut finding a squirrel or a dead clock, as you like to say, a dead clock being right twice a day. I'm talking about, there were undeniable manifestations and demonstrations of what I can only call supernatural power, meaning it defies any events and circumstances repeatedly occurred to me that defy any rational explanation within the laws of physics as we understand them, or as we would expect things to go, or would be, statistically within the realm of, that could just be a coincidence. So that's why I would tell people, I can't be an atheist, and I mean that from but see, here's where semantics get in. But I would say I can't be an atheist, because to be an atheist would be to deny myself. And here's what I mean by that. Like, I mean, people can say whatever they want. Like, I was a quote unquote faith healer, and you can say whatever you want to, those of you out there, about faith healing, and you can call it you can say it's all charlatanism. You can say it's mass hypnosis. Oh, by the way, I'm a licensed hypnotherapist and have been for the last 12 years. You can say that it's placebo effects, psychological, whatever. There were things that occurred beyond healing that were what we would call signs and wonders, that were not placebo effects. But see, here's the thing. I'm not trying to convince anybody to believe in God based on my experiences. I'm not trying to get anybody out there to believe that in faith healing at all. I don't care what you believe about that. What I'm saying is, I'm convinced based on my own experiences, and I can't undo that.
Yeah.
I can't undo that, even if I wanted to. Even if I tried, that's always going to be a part of who I am. So my quest then became, how do I make sense out of those experiences, and even experiences that I've had, recently? Like, for whatever reason, my life has just been characterized, even after I sort of so-called left the faith. Like, that time in Arizona, there were synchronicities and supernatural occurrences and experiences and encounters with power outside of the realm of Jesus Christ, outside of the realm of the church, outside the realm of preaching people up into a whatever, emotional whatever, worshiping them up into whatever. And so I guess where I've landed is that I'm probably, if Kyle's DNA is love, if I'm really honest, if I want to come out from behind the shelter of, I don't want to talk about this too much because people are going to think I'm weird or crazy or I lost my mind or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, Probably at heart, I'm a mystic. I'm a mystic at heart. Now, mystic is someone who, mystic comes from the word mystery. And so, you know, the biggest mystery of all to me is my own life. And
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure that out. But here's the thing. I no longer want to appeal to my subjective experiences to convince anybody that they need to believe in God
Right.
or that God exists, nor do I want to depend upon my subjective experiences to formulate any kind of doctrine or any kind of absolute belief. So I guess you could say maybe I'm an agnostic theist, but I don't even know about that because, again, I don't feel the need to worship anything. I don't feel the need to follow anything. And yet there's still this presence. And by presence, I mean a state of consciousness that is outside my normal state of thinking and feeling and reacting and being, a sense, an awareness of something
Mhm.
that I tap into or that comes over me that does direct and guide my life and protect me and give me wisdom, and maybe that's my higher self, maybe that's the divine part of me. I have no idea, but I know I can't deny those experiences.
No, and and that's a funny thing because we've talked about this. I've had those similar experiences, and you can't say it didn't happen, right? Now you
Right.
can come up with a lot of things where, okay, maybe it was group agreement, maybe it was psychosomatic, maybe it could have been any number of things. But this is, and you said something that was really, really key, that people say, "Oh, well, Derrick, you don't want to embrace the mystery." Well, I embrace the mystery. There is far more that I don't understand than what I do. And I'm a pretty smart guy,
Yeah.
but I
Well,
acknowledge that there is way more that I don't understand than what I do understand. Now, let me say this: that when Einstein uh, produced his theory of general relativity, this ran contrary to some of the work that had been done by people like Planck before him and his contemporaries Bohr and Heisenberg. That they saw holes in this. And the funny thing was is that as Bohr and Heisenberg and others were formulating the general theory of quantum mechanics, that Einstein was poking holes in what they said. And so when you fast forward to like John Bell and the Bell's theorem, basically that there's a there the holy grail of understanding the physical universe as we perceive it is what they call the unified field theory. In other
right.
words, what is this thing? Because we know that there is right and there is good in general relativity. We know that there is good and there is right in quantum mechanics. So how do you marry the two? And so one of the things that I've been kind of following or studying lately is what they call string theory, and that basically, at the atomic level, or the subatomic level, you have what we call general atomic subcomponents: electrons, neutrons, um, protons. And then these break down further into like quarks and leptons and so on and so forth. But the concept behind string theory is that these things actually break down further into these strings, literally like strings, and
Right.
that when these strings are plucked a certain way, they create a frequency or a vibration that alters or that dictates what their end state is. What am I saying? Is that, can I explain string theory to a sixth grader? Fuck no, I can't. Can I explain it to someone who has a master's in information systems? No, I can't. What I can do is I can take what I've learned from this and say, okay, I can see where my understanding of this helps me to understand what's happening in my world in things that I cannot discern, things that I cannot perceive, things that I cannot understand. There are things for example the double slit experiment, right? You
Right.
know that when you send a wave through a double slit, you get these bands of organization on a panel on the other side of the slit. But if you take a particle and aim it at the double slit, and you repeat this over and over again, you get the same kind of banding. And scientists to this day don't really understand why that is. They understand that it makes sense in the category of a wave, but why would it be the same way as a particle? That defies science. So the point is, at least with the science, I can get to things that are quantifiable and measurable. I can also develop patterns that are repeatable. So this is something that like when something is tangible, when it's measurable, when it's repeatable, then that means you could place some confidence in it, and you can say, okay, I can put some confidence in this regarding things in my day-to-day life. I mean, it's like there are certain things like nuclear medicine, um, the treatment of cancer is impossible without quantum mechanics. Without that knowledge, nuclear medicine is impossible. Nuclear power is impossible. Some of the things that we understand now about light and how solar power works, these things are all driven by that. So here's the point. All of this is a mystery. I'm no
Hmm.
scientist, and even scientists don't agree on everything. To this day, there are still people that are proteges of Einstein, and they're still proteges of Bohr's, and and they will disagree until the cows come home. Who's
Hmm.
right? One of them, neither of them, both of them, who knows? But the thing is that I could get to something that I understand. So let me say this. Like, I would say that out of if we were to ask 100 people in our audience what happens when they turn the key to their car,
Hmm.
what happens? What is it? What are the chain of events? What are the discrete events and processes in this chain of events that lead to your car starting up and running? And I would say that out of 100 people, that probably 99 would not get it. I'm very confident in that. And we have some smart people watching. And I know this. I'm looking at some of these names, and these are some big brains. Um, but the thing is that if I were to say, oh well, this is magic, or this is supernatural, okay, then you know at that point we're at something that may not be tangible, certainly not measurable, and definitely not repeatable.
Hmm.
And so I'll say this because you touched on mysticism, and I would say that there's a part of me that still embraces the mystic. It still embraces this mystery because I'm not tied to a destination in any of this. This
Right.
is a journey, and
Right.
as long as I'm drawing breath, I'm on this journey, and I'm observing, and I'm learning, I'm taking notes, I'm getting in touch with my inner Lewis and Clark, and as I'm traveling the Northwest Territory of my life, I'm understanding and growing. And we
Hmm.
talk about this too, growing in real time. That's the whole thing. So when this is the other thing that I want to say, that people think that when you say you're an atheist, you say you've arrived. at some conclusion. I haven't
Mm,
arrived at a conclusion. All I have is in my destination, I've concluded that a waypoint that I passed was not the right one,
mm,
but I
mhm.
keep moving. I'm
Yeah.
not saying that I have it all, that I know it all, that there and frankly, in this journey, I may come to something else that I may find I need to deconstruct from.
Yeah.
You know, because in using the analogy of my garage is like I had to tear the garage down, then I had to tear up the foundation. Then they could have said, well, you're on you know sandy ground that nobody should have ever built here. And you'd be smart not to build a garage. In other words, or you could get down and say, okay, well, you're right on top of a tectonic plate. If you build here, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and this is going to all blow up. So what I'm saying is that you could keep deconstructing, and you'll find more things to more layers of the onion to peel back. And that's all. I don't want anybody to think that that just because I say I'm an atheist that I think I know it all. I don't. I'm smart
Mm,
enough to know that I don't. I
mhm.
don't. I There is more that I don't have a fucking clue about than what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. um, I'm going to address Carl's comment again here. He says, what do you think of Rob Bell's statement, God is the hum of the universe and the universe is rigged in our favor? Um, here's what I think about a lot of those statements. And I don't want to be a hypocrite because I teach, Sunday mornings and we talk here and stuff like this. But I remember somebody said to me when I was really struggling with some different stuff, and I was struggling with the issue of not theodicy, evil present in the world, and an all-loving God, but an all quote a supposed all-loving God being anything but all-loving in the Bible, where He chose to reveal Himself, right? And I remember this person said to me, she said, some people get amazing inspiration because I said, oh, the Bible's inspired by God. Some people get amazing inspiration and they can write great volumes of literature and they sell it as fiction. Other people can get inspiration and write amazing volumes of literature or thought and they sell it as revelation from God. And that has been kind of a plumb line for me because God is the hum of the universe. I don't even know what that means. I have no clue what that means. It sounds good.
I think I get that. That God is basically. It, we've talked about this, and my son Ducey, this is a big thing of his teaching, is vibration. You know
Okay.
that there is this frequency that undergirds everything, right? And some people call it 428 hertz. Some people say it's 523 hertz. They're like different manifestations of frequency, right? And so I get that. And this is what so Rob Bell says the universe is rigged in our favor. Now that's the part that I struggle with. That's the part that I struggle with. The hum of the universe, I'm with you there. I'm tracking. But that it's rigged in our favor. You know what? I see too many bad things happen to good people to say that it's rigged in our favor. Now, don't get me wrong. This is this is what I believe. I believe that there is a point that humanity can reach that when we're close to, I mean, asymptotically close to the frequency of love or the frequency of creation, the frequency of healing, whatever that undergirding frequency is, that is the thing. And we talked about the age of Aquarius. This is the thing that will usher in the age of Aquarius. That when humanity just kind of says, okay, I see we're not on a good track, we're not on a healthy track, we're not going in the right direction. Let's all begin to dovetail toward this overarching or undergirding truth, or not even truth. Let's take the word truth out of it. Let's say a working mechanic, a
Mhm.
working metric. that we all get close to this working metric. And then once we get there, then we begin to reshape the world, the universe around us, right? And so at that point, I begin that I contend that humanity then begins to rig the universe in its favor. But is the universe rigged in our favor by default? I, you know, Carl is a guy I have a lot of respect for, but that's one that part of it, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with him because this he said this is Rob Bell who said it, but and I'm a Rob Bell fanboy, but that's one point where I would disagree with Rob. You know, the hum of the universe, I get it. That is rigged in our favor, no. You know, I was watching this video on YouTube of all things. I watch some really crazy shit sometimes, but it was about casino gambling, and that if you are willing to bet, M+1, or until you get returns of up to a certain point, and I think that it's that at the point of you can win 30% and walk away, right? And if you do this over time, you'll stay ahead. But most people don't. They get on a streak and they say, okay, I'm up 30%. Let me go more. And at that point that you get down to the rule of diminishing returns, and your odds begin to drop off dramatically. And so when you start talking about doubling your money, those odds are asymptotically close to zero. It's like, it just, and so this is how the house always wins. So is the universe rigged in our favor in that regard? No. But let's say that we figure out collectively how to get to the 30%, maybe even 40%. How do we get to that? And continue to repeat that process, then I think that our outcomes will be in line with the input of the vibration. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, it does. I think for me, just reading that statement, and I know nothing about Rob Bell except that he wrote the book Love Wins, and it caused him all kinds of persecution. That's about all I know about Rob Bell. So just taking the statement itself on face value with no context. This is where language gets us in trouble, and it's why I started with trying to define terms at the beginning, because and this is where we get into difficulty when it comes to talking about any spiritual thing. If I were to say glass of wine without producing this, if I just said glass of wine, unless you just have absolutely no clue what I'm talking about, and I don't know how that could even be possible, something like this is what pops into your brain. We're all thinking the same thing.
And
because
remember,
we have
we
this
talked about
reference
this
when it comes to language, right?
with this agreement, because we agree that this is a glass of wine, and so the wave function collapses into that. I just had to throw that out there.
Yeah. Let me just talk on the level. You're talking on the level of quantum physics. Let me talk on the level of linguistics. Linguistically, okay, when I say glass of wine, your brain goes to this, my brain goes to this, or something similar. I assume every single one, we have the same reference point in our mind when we hear the word glass of wine. Gotcha. Linguistically, I have no solid reference point for favor. None. What is a favor to you, or what favor looks like to you, and what favor looks like to me? Who knows? Who knows what you reference in your mind when you think about favor? You might think about the promotion you got. I might think about reading something about Joseph having favor with God and man. Who knows what Carl's thinking about, or what Rob Bell meant when he said it. And so that word is so squishy. It's so malleable. It has so many different reference points. I'll give you a different example to make it easier. If I say apple, if I say the word apple, your mind has to reference an apple. Now, for some people, that might be a Red Delicious apple. You stole my thunder.
Sorry,
you stole
man.
my thunder. But you made the point perfectly. Some people might think of Red Delicious, some might think of Granny Smith, some might think the device you're holding in your hand. That still is narrower, but there's diversity among the way we understand that term to be being used. When you talk about favor, you talk about glory, you talk about grace, you talk about God, you talk about any of this stuff, who knows? Because there's nothing to go back to a common reference with. It's so broad that it could literally mean anything. And if you listen to most religious speak, most of it is stuff that we have no idea, if we have the same references in our mind for what that word means. And yet we think we're having a conversation. You know, if back in the day when we were preachers, if I were to say, man, we had a great meeting, and the glory of God really showed out, and it was just good to be a believer, don't you think? You say, yeah, man. Well, your reference for a good meeting might be everybody running around the building, shouting and hollering and whooping it up. And my idea of a good meeting might be everybody passed out on the floor laying on the floor in prayer. Somebody else's idea of a good meeting might be everybody just got silent and nobody said a word and nobody moved. And what does the glory mean? The glory showed up. So for me, you know, words like favor, I can take that and mean anything. Yeah, does the universe work in my favor? Sure. Which time? And then if something bad happens, then we can redefine the bad event. If we begin with the presupposition, the universe is rigged in my favor, we can take any negative event and we can redefine it if we make it submitted to that frame of reference. So in other words, and this is how you end up with religious bullshit, where somebody loses a child and you say, well, God needed an angel in heaven, or you know, well, you needed this in order to grow in your character and in your strength. And I don't, you know, or I don't understand how this is working. So we're taking a premise that really has very slippery meaning just linguistically. I'm not picking on Rob Bell. I'm just saying at a linguistic level, this is very slippery. And then if we make that a principle, if we make that a premise that then becomes a governing frame, we can finagle anything. And this is what most prophecy is. And this is what a lot of psychic reading is. If you go to a psychic fair and you listen to 95% of psychic readings, it's going to be on this level of linguistic stuff that is so malleable, you can make anything fit. You can go to any prophetic meeting, and unless they're giving detailed words of knowledge about people's lives, and by that I mean past events that happened and took place. William Branham, I mean, you know, I would sit and watch William Branham videos, and I don't believe they were fake. Now, other people out there, they may think they were fake, but I experienced some of the same things when I began to believe that that was possible, where he could tell people their address, he could tell people events that happened in their life, he could tell them the sickness that was in their body. Those things are all very verifiable. We don't see that today, Derrick. We you know, these prophetic meetings, well, brother, you've been going through a dark time, and it's been I'm going to give you a prophetic word, Derrick. All right, I'm just a general prophetic word.
I'm ready to receive.
The last couple of years have been tumultuous for you in many ways. Yet at the same time, there's been a steadiness that's been taking place in your life. And you've gone through some challenges, and you've met those challenges, and God is very pleased with you for the way that you've met those challenges. But I want to tell you, there's a new thing that God is doing, and the old things are going to begin to pass away, because there's a new door that's opening for you in your life. And this new door is going to take you to another level. Now, with that other level, there are going to be some challenges that are going to come your way. And not everybody in your family is going to understand what you're about or what you're thinking. And there are going to be some people that are going to tell you that you're crazy, but God is leading you on this path. And there is a resonance of God. So follow your heart. And as you follow your heart, you're going to overcome these challenges, and you're going to go to the next level.
Praise Jeebus.
Now, how many times have you heard prophetic words like that?
All the time.
All the time. Who hasn't gone through challenges in the last 2 years? Whose life hasn't been tumultuous in the last couple of years?
Oh my God.
You see, if I use these higher level adjectives, your mind, your brain immediately starts trying to make sense out of what I'm saying. And so it immediately starts programming. It starts making references. Oh, I went through, a change of jobs. I went through some health challenges. I went through some difficulties to get my house sold and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, I know you, so I can make your life fit. I can say, look, Derrick, I read you like a book.
Yep.
But I guarantee you, if you just isolate what I said and you throw that out at any person, they'll make their life fit into that.
Yep.
And then they'll say, oh my God, how did they know?
And then you'll get somebody to say, hey, word of knowledge.
Exactly.
This, you're talking about linguistically, but I want to circle back to quantum physics again.
Yeah.
Because, or just physics in general, that what is this tangible? In other words, can you perceive it? Is it measurable? Can you quantify it? And is it repeatable? How many times does this happen? People, and this is the thing, like when I've seen people get healed of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, I've literally laid hands on people.
Mm-hmm.
I've laid hands on people and they
Mm-hmm.
got healed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But not everybody gets healed.
Right.
I remember, like Ducey, using Ducey as an example. Ducey's a type 1 diabetic.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, laying hands on a lady who had a broken ankle, and she got up and broke the cast off and started running around the church, but I can't get my son healed.
Yeah.
See, and again, this is either, okay, God's doing it for this person, but not this person, which means that God is truly a respecter of persons, which means that God's a dick at heart,
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing too, I've got to throw this out here. When people talk about God's plan,
Uh-oh.
when I hear people talk about God's, everything happens according to God's plan. Nothing happens without God knowing. And I'm like, okay, if that's the case, either God is not omniscient or God's a fuck up. I mean, these are the things that I came up with, and I thought about this like in real terms, like if I'm dealing with an individual, that they say they can do, like, someone says, I can help you turn your money into more money. I can help you get a 25% ROI. And you say, okay. But then you look at this guy's track record with, say, 100 people, and you say, okay, this person got 2%, this person got 3%, this person got 4%, this person got 2%, this person got 50%, but then this person got 1%. And so then when you're averaging it all out, and you say, okay, 25% is a legitimate average. But if you look at the repeatability of that 50%, you find that doesn't exist. That's a purple unicorn.
Right.
And so I guess, like, what happened to me, Aaron, is that I got tired of purple unicorns.
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm like, I want to see something happen over and over again. That if I get a new car, now let me give you another example. The same church we were in, back in Arkansas, and there was a rash of first there was a rash of babies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anthony was part of this rash of babies. All of a sudden, pregnancy is just breaking out like a pandemic in the church, right? But then there are people who have been praying for a child, and either they can't conceive a child or they have a child and is stillborn. And then, we had a rash of new cars. One person got a new car, then another one and so we were in that rash of new cars. We got a brand new Chrysler minivan. But there were other people who were praying for, believing for a new car. It didn't come. And so, then people would say, and I have people say, yeah, Brother Day, I know that you're a man of faith, because this is like all these things are happening for you. The baby, the cars, the new house, all this stuff. Brother Day, and then I began to think, and again, when I replay this in my mind, I say, man, how many times did I get a blessing, and I'm brought up to the front of the church to give a testimony for how good God has been in my life. How many people watch that saying, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Why am I not getting this? Why am I struggling? Why can't I have a baby? Why can't I get a new car? Why can't I get a new job? Why is my marriage crumbling? And on and on and on. And again, it's like, and I say this all the time, and this will be my next stopping point. That if I had unlimited power for one day, I would get into every children's hospital I could, and heal every child. I mean, because I've spent time in children's hospitals. I would heal every single child. I wouldn't ask whether their parents are faithful tithers, whether they go to church, whether they believe or not, whether they love God, whether they hate God. I could give less than a fuck. I would heal these babies because they haven't done anything to anybody. But God ostensibly has all power. Nothing too hard for God. How great is our God? God is majestic. He's wonderful. He's a healer. And yet, parents bury their babies every day. In the 1960s, Danny Thomas, the actor, founded the St. Jude's Foundation because he believed that no child should be without medical care. And so St. Jude's now is a pioneering research hospital regarding pediatric cancer. Danny Thomas has been dead. I don't know how long has Danny Thomas been dead? Anybody know? I'm not going to Google it right now because I'm in a stream of consciousness.
Yeah, right.
But Danny Thomas has been dead for a minute. And Danny Thomas is doing more for sick kids than the God of the Bible. And he's dead. People say, oh, well, Jesus is alive. No, Jesus is dead. Jesus is dead than a motherfucker. Dead. He is as dead as all of his contemporaries. He's dead. He's fucking dead. But here, Danny Thomas is doing more to heal sick babies than Jesus. And it's things like that blow my mind, because see, here's the thing about the Danny Thomas and St. Jude's is that his work is tangible, it's measurable, and there is a repeatability. They haven't gotten to like, to where it's fully repeatable, but they've got a very good track record. They got a better track record than Christianity does. And here's the thing that gets me. And this is the thing. This is the thing, Aaron. God damn it. This is the thing that gets me. It's 2022. You have all the information you need at your fingertips. This right here is a fucking miracle. When I think about my 10-year-old self, if somebody told me that one day you will have a computer in your hand that you could go and see everything in the world, you could read books, all of these things, you could do all of these things with this little device that you could throw in your pocket. If somebody told me that in 1972, I would have laughed. I laughed. I'm like, you know, hey, meet George Jetson, right? And, we have all of this information, and yet when you posit something before someone and say, listen, at least consider what you believe, at least give it some thought. I'm not asking you to change your mind. I'm not asking you to believe like me. I'm not asking any of that. All I'm asking you to do is to stop and think. Engage your brain and look at this logically, rationally, scientifically. And if you look at it like that, there is, let me say this, Aaron, that at least you have to come to where you are. You can't, if you're going to be fully intellectually honest, fully engaged, logically and reasonably, you're going to have to come to some realizations that the whole faith paradigm is broken. It simply doesn't work. And I'm like I said, I'm not trying to make an army of atheists. Honestly, listen, if I if I told you what I made for a living, you would say it's obscene. I I, I I don't I have nothing to gain by anything that I say or do. I have nothing to gain by these videos. Nothing. Nothing. I mean, we talk about some things that we want to do that we think will benefit, humanity. But at the end of the day, it's like you and I both could walk away from this and be just peachy keen.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But the thing is, we do this because people really need a nudge. I mean, just because, again, there are so many people. Aaron, you are one. Simon Yap is another. Kyle Butler is another. Dr. K. Fairchild is another.
Yeah.
These are people that cause me to go back and really reevaluate what I was saying, what I was teaching, what I was learning. I had to go back and Aaron Abke, all of these people, I had to go back and really rethink this whole thing, because it's like, I'm like, okay, why doesn't, I'm believing, I'm praying, but why isn't this making sense? Why am I not getting help? Why am I seeing the same things happen over and over and over again? And let me say this, and y'all please hear me, that since I let go of the whole Bible narrative, since I let go of the whole Jesus paradigm, since I've kicked Christianity to the curb, since I've said fuck God, my life has been 1,000% better in every measurable category. Because what happened is, it's the same thing as when the African enslaved person in the pre-antebellum South that they escaped and got their freedom. What do
Hmm.
you think that that person felt like to no longer have the fear of the whip, no longer the fear of being starved, the fear of being raped, the fear of being killed, that fear is now gone? How much better is that person's life? That, my friend Aaron, and everybody listening, that is my life today. That's my life.
That was great. Hey man, we've gone long. I'm gonna have
Yep.
to jump off here in a second, but I want to say this because I could hear in my head when you were talking about the children's ward and healing everybody in a children's ward and all that stuff, and I could hear in my head, or you talk about seeing people healed of cancer, but do see not being healed of his affliction,
Mhm.
and I could hear in my head people saying, you said, God has a plan. I could hear in my head, well, God's ways are not our ways. His
Oh
thoughts are
God.
not our thoughts. God's ways are not our ways. And if that's your answer for people, go fuck yourself. Take all your books and shove them up your ass because you don't have an ounce of compassion. You can just go fuck yourself. And that's the last thing I'm going to say.
And that's a good way to end it. Normally we go through the comments and invite people on, but Aaron, I know you got to
I
go.
got to
And
run, man.
but
Elijah
listen,
was just grabbing me. I got to go help him with something. So
no problem. But listen, want to thank everybody for being on. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the subscribe button, click the bell to get notified so that you see this. And that's pretty much it, man. But Aaron, you have the closing, man. From now on, this is it.
yeah,
You
let's see.
own it.
I'm
You own
gonna
it, man.
change a little. Yeah. I'm gonna change a little bit. I'm gonna say grace and peace and chicken grease.
Oh shit. You know what? If Henry Harris is watching, he's in love with you right now
Really?
because he loves some fried chicken.
All right.
Good God Almighty. All right.
All
Love you,
right,
man.
man.
All
Love
right.
you too. I'll
Talk to you
catch you
later.
later.
Love you guys.